Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lowell's Museum Oral History Project. Today, we have got none other than Lois. I know her as Lois White, but she has a different last name that I can't pronounce real well. How do you pronounce that again?
Thomas Savage.
Thomas Savage. And the great thing about having Lois here at our table today is the fact that not only does she has history here in Lowell, but she grew up here in Lowell with her brothers and with her parents, and those two were both teachers. And we'd like to start off with your parents' history here. So, where did your parents meet?
Where did my parents meet?
Yes.
At Western, which at that time was called Western State Teachers College.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
And they both graduated from there.
And after they graduated, they had gotten married and came to Lowell? How did that happen?
No, they lived in Hamilton, Michigan. And that's where my brothers, they went to Allegan, and I was born there. And then they moved to Hamilton, and then to Plainwell before Lowell.
So was it because of their teaching jobs? Is that why they had moved around so much? Went from Hamilton to Plainwell and then eventually to Lowell?
Yeah, my dad taught, at that time that those school districts were part of one, and so he taught, and my mother was taking care of twins and me, so, and then evidently, I don't know why they made the decision, but when they were living in Plainwell, my dad learned of a teaching position open in Lowell. So he took that position and they moved to Lowell. That was in 1941.
And what did he teach then here in Lowell?
He taught business courses, business law, economics. And in fact, he created a business law course that was used in other schools across the state. So,
well, all I know is over the years, whenever I mentioned, oh yeah, I live, up on Washington Street and the old White House, and everybody, oh, Charlie and Esther, everybody has been just so. When their names come up, everybody has a smile on their face.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It's fun to hear.
Yeah.
And as I said to you earlier, a lot of students came up to the house just on a social visit. And talk to my dad. And
so he just kind of mentored people on a regular basis.
He believed in teaching practical things too. Recently I was at a program that we were talking about curriculum that had been eliminated from schools, and one of the gals in the audience had gone to school with me, and she came over to me afterwards and she said, your dad, I took economics from your dad, and he had us make a budget, a household budget. And she said, I used that in my life. And so he had, wanted to teach practical things. And he started the driver training program.
In Lowell?
In Lowell, which he did without pay, and then he managed that until the state took it over.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's very admirable of him.
What time frame was that about? And if you don't have exact.
No, I'm trying to, I don't know if I said that in here. Let's see. He started the driver's ed program in 1947.
Wow.
And continued it until the state took it over, I don't know, a number of years later. Yeah, it doesn't say how many years.
So my question is, what cars did they use for this driver's training? Did parents donate their cars, or how did this happen?
No, dealership. I think a dealership.
Okay, and at that time, Lowell had like one dealership or a couple, and they would donate those from the dealership.
I don't know if it was a lease type of thing or whether they were an outright, donated it. I don't remember that.
Wow, he was brave. So was he the only? Was he the only driver's ed teacher?
I think so.
Oh my goodness.
Now,
But things were a lot different then.
yeah. Now, did you have your parents as a teacher?
I had to have him for a teacher.
You did. What was that like?
My biggest dilemma was what to call him. But I just would address him, but I took business law from him. And fortunately, I liked that topic, so I did well. But that was the only class I took. My brothers had to have my mother for a third grade teacher.
Wow. Now, that was down at Runciman?
She was in Runciman.
And, okay, yeah. See, that was probably built in, the early 50s, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, because I went to first grade in Runciman building.
Okay.
The year that we moved here, I went to first grade with Miss Bushnell.
Oh, wow.
Is that name?
Yeah.
She was, she was a very revered teacher, and
across the street.
she became a family friend. I remember we all three had our tonsils out in Dr. Shepard's office downtown, and she came with my mother to help her out for the day.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Is that the Dr. Shepard that was on the second floor with a bunch of them down at just the corner of Washington and Maine?
I think so. He was upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we talking about
Canfield's
that cool Victorian house that's down there?
No, Canfield's building. Doctor's office
I didn't
upstairs.
realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I'm 78% sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know if there was a hospital downtown Lowell or if there was some sort of, but there was a doctor's office
Well,
downtown
there was
Lowell.
some kind of a room there. There was some outpatient procedure.
Wow.
Yeah, because that's where we had our tonsils.
Now that teacher has a familiar last name of Bushnell. Now, is that the reason why we have that school name?
Elementary.
Was it named after her?
I would guess it was, yes.
It is. Yeah.
She was very revered. She was one of those that went beyond, and she never married.
Wow.
And that was her life, was teaching.
Yeah, she lived upstairs in Mrs. Perry's house, right across the street from where I grew up.
Okay.
I took her garbage out every Wednesday when I was younger.
You had that honor.
Yeah, I took her garbage out. I had her for first grade. Yeah, she was a great lady.
But I remember, she was part of the family. She would come to our house for Thanksgiving dinner, and
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that history. This is a new one for me, guys.
Yeah.
Good stuff. What was some of your early memories of school and growing up here in town?
Cool. Well, I remember who all my teachers were, and my third grade teacher and my sixth grade teacher were the same person, and she's still living. I'm sure you've interviewed her, Betty Yeiter.
Oh, wow.
She was Miss Roth in the third grade, and she was Mrs. Yeiter when I was in the sixth grade. And another remarkable person.
Another beacon that we have.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I remember playing kick the can around the neighborhood with Bruce Clemens and Carl Fairmuth, who lived on Jefferson, and stuff like that. And we played in the woods. The Shalers lived right behind us.
Okay.
And there was a Shaler. What was the boy's name?
Right behind you you lived on Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the woods, there was nothing but woods behind you for the house.
Bottom of Reservoir Hill, and there were woods. We used to take our lunch, brown bag lunch, and go all day and walk along the creek and be up in the woods and just play
Now,
as kids.
when I was a little kid, down at the middle of Sherman Street on the north-hand side, there was just a little woods there that all of us neighborhood kids used to play in. and we used to call it the bike jump because there was a little gully there where there was like a drain for the street. And so, yeah, a lot of us neighborhood kids played there, and I'm just wondering if that was something that existed in your time.
Did you guys have bike jumps?
We no,
No.
we just our little brown paper sack and just play in the creek and just those outdoor things.
Did you go to the movies?
Oh, definitely went to the movies. Yes.
What do you now? Because you lived in town, you could walk there. Correct?
Oh, I walked everywhere. I walked to school every day, and sometimes came home for lunch because it was maybe 6 short blocks.
What's your favorite memory of going to the movies with your friends?
Oh, we was being able to, we'd sit through 2 movies,
What?
for
They
50
had 2 movies?
for 50 cents. Yeah.
I didn't get to go to the movies when they had 2 movies. So did you start? Was it like movies that started at like noon and then?
I don't even remember.
It just seems so long to do that. And you did that in the winter too. The movies played then too.
Probably. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That would be more like when I was junior high.
What movie came out that you were most impressed with?
Well, I remember my girlfriends and I were really into Dale Evans and Roy Rogers, and so I guess we were probably about 12 or something then, because all girls, went on a horse at some time, and Dale Evans and Roy Rogers were. We had this romantic. Version of thinking of them. Of course, they did ultimately get married, but so those are the only ones I can remember.
How about some memories of Showboat growing up? You got any good stories there?
I was in the
or-
chorus, and my best friend was Sylvia Denny, whose mother had the rooming house, the
Oh,
Elms.
yes.
And a lot of the Showboat performers stayed at her house. And one memory, there was a ballerina. She married a veteran, a Lowell person. Her name was Nadine Aramenko. That was her. And she gave us the honor of sewing all the sequins on her costume.
Oh, wow.
So Sylvia and I sewed all her sequins on her costume. But that was always kind of fun to be able to talk to the performers that stayed at her house, the rooming house.
And where was her rooming house?
It's still on the corner, right on Main Street, isn't it?
Jefferson
Jefferson
and
and Main.
Yep,
Yeah.
South Jefferson and Main.
Yeah.
In
Well, I
fact,
got a couple of stories there because you know where the McQueen house was the block before the boarding house. The old greenhouse right in the corner.
Yes.
A lot of the guests would come in there thinking that was where they would stay, so Grandma had to tell them, no, you have to go down another block.
Okay.
She had a couple of people come in several times and say, this is where we're staying at. She says, I don't think so, but if you go down a block, you're probably staying down
Now,
there.
is there still a sign there that says the Elms?
up until recently, there was a sign there that said Denny's on it, and somebody stole it, actually.
Oh, really?
Flat River Outreach Ministries owns it now. And
Oh, really?
yeah, so it's subsidized, housing. And they're doing renovations on it. They've owned it for about 4 or 5 years, and they're going through and renovating all of the units and making them, just something that somebody can be proud to live in.
Well, I'll have to tell Sylvia because we talk frequently. She's in California, and I ran across a postcard with picture. When I asked her if she wanted it, she said she had lots of them, so I kept it, and I was going to give it to the museum. It has the elm sign, on the front.
I don't think I've ever seen a postcard from that place.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have any.
I don't think the museum has that. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
it would be neat to get a hold of any memorabilia that they might have.
Right.
Get some copies of that. Because I know Jody Cease, who is running the construction project, she's also interested in the history that went on, of Denny's tourist homes. And apparently, Mrs. Denny, she also taught out at Follisburg Schoolhouse,
she did.
Of which Tina and I are on the board for the Follisburg Historical Society.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. So we would, so that everybody's history is connected here. We would be interested in accumulating that history too.
Oh.
So let's put that in your back pocket.
Oh,
we'll circle around to
I've
that.
had that card aside to plan to give to the
okay.
museum. So, well, the other fun thing that I remember, Lowell originally had a phone operator, and we
Really?
did not have dialed phones. And you had to crank the phone and give the operator your number. Sylvia's number was 21. Mine was 454. Well, we used to drive, and the operator's name was May. Just went on my head. Anyway, she lived at the Elms. When she finally told Sylvia's mother that these girls were driving her crazy. Mamie, her name was. And Mamie something.
Okay.
I remember her last name, but we drove her pretty nuts. Teenage girls dialing or cranking the phone.
Of course.
But before I left home, they had dial the phones. So.
Do you have any old memories of like Carrie's or Chris's drugstore?
Oh,
or any
yeah.
of those? You got any
Definitely.
little things?
Oh, yeah. We loved Chris's drugstore, and my mother shopped at Carrie's, and occasionally I'd find a new blouse in my closet or something that Mom had. It was a big treat to go into Grand Rapids shopping. When I was 12 or 13, another neighbor girl, Lucille Bozan, I don't know if that's a name you remember, down the corner.
Lived down the corner,
Right.
of Washington. Yeah, Bazung. Yeah, they lived there, till they died.
Yeah, three daughters, and anyway, Lucille and I took the Greyhound bus into Grand Rapids one day.
Oh, wow.
To go shopping, and that was a big deal.
So wait a minute. So there was a Greyhound bus pickup on Main Street.
Stopped at Watson's drugstore.
I didn't
and you
know
could
that.
ride into Grand Rapids.
Yeah. Where was Watson's?
It's about next door to what's the restaurant?
Flat River Grill? Is that the restaurant?
Yes.
Yeah, Flat River.
Yeah.
It was on the corner there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was right about in there.
I didn't know that.
There was a Watson's drugstore, and
Now, I seen that you took down a lot of notes. You brought us some notes here. Is there anything that we need to cover here?
They were mostly notes about my family and the years, the dates, and so forth. And I think I've already said all of these.
Yeah, I think we talked about some of those when the camera was off. No.
It'd be interesting to learn the backstory, like your great grandparents. Were the immigrants come across from somewhere, or do you know any little historical ancestral stories?
We had a lot of background on my mother's side, it was German background. Her parents my great-grandparents immigrated from Germany. And both of my grandparents were dead before I was ever born, so I never knew them. And that's one thing I always, I hung out with Juanita Alflin, then the Wattress, and their grandparents were still alive lived out on Grand River Drive, and I was always, I don't want to say, just envious that she had grandparents, because I didn't. But we had uncles and aunts that we would get together with a couple times a year over at Bertha Brock Park. My dad had a background that he was very tight-lipped about. And it's just kind of amazing because he had one brother, and my dad turned out so successfully, had a totally different life, and his brother just really didn't. And they were born to Italian immigrants. He was also afraid of being prejudiced against him. But my grandfather did change the family name when he was made a citizen. So White was definitely our name, but it was originally Capobianco, which is Whitehead in Italian.
Caco Bianco.
Yeah, and
Poetic.
he never wanted anybody to know that because teachers were fired for strange things unrelated to their teaching in those days. And I just learned a couple of years ago from a cousin that my maternal grandfather was a minister, and the name was Reingans, and he was, I think it was in Munising. He had a church at the time when World War II broke out. They fired him because he had a German-sounding name, and so he took a job on General Motors on the factory line. And I never knew that till just a few years ago. So there were, those things that happen that, well, we're still dealing with, some of the prejudicial. So, but I was wondering if you were going to ask me, or I guess somebody did say on the phone about my impression of growing up in Lowell, and I thought, when you're a kid and then a teenager, you have a real different perspective than you do when you've matured. And I kind of wish that I brought my sons up here because I do have a lot of happy memories and a lot of fun with simple things that, and my friends. Our high school class, we had 68 in our graduating class. And we've stayed close friends. And of course, a lot of them we're losing now. But up until just a couple of years ago, at least every 5 years, we would have a reunion. A couple of years ago, about 25 of us met over at the gathering place in Cascade for lunch. And even since then, a few of them have left us. But we do keep in touch, trying to keep up on people's health. And so I've always felt that closeness, that if we'd had a large class, that wouldn't have happened.
How about the trains? The trains used to come through Lowell, and the train depot thing. Did you ever ride the train into Grand Rapids or do anything on the train?
No.
Nothing.
I don't think that was operating when.
It wasn't?
I'm not aware of it.
I remember riding it when I was in fourth grade. So I
Well,
know
then
it
you
was
must
still,
have. Then it must have. Because
Okay.
you're younger.
I just wondered about that because it was still the depot was still there, and that was the main artery for Lowell, which as these guys know, put Fallisburg and Mosley and Elton out of business. Basically,
Yes.
when the train came through and followed it, those towns just kind of lost their population, and it was kind of over for them.
It was our ghost towns.
Yeah.
Did you, so you have, I'm sorry to say this. Did you have a boyfriend from Lowell, and did you run off and get married with him, or what's going on here? I want to know that story.
No, I didn't run off and get married to a boyfriend from Lowell. One of my girlfriends had a job, my classmates had a job in a shoe store, and it doesn't exist anymore, in Grand Rapids. And the manager of the shoe store was someone who graduated from Vanderbilt University and had worked his way through college in their shoe stores, and they transferred him up here. And she connected me with him and got married at 19. Yeah, and that's why I was accepted at Michigan State, but instead got married, and then I went to JC. So that was that.
Did you follow your career from there? Were you, because you were accepted at Michigan State, and that's a huge badge of honor, you know. And then you went to a JC because you had gotten married.
Yeah.
Did you finish your college education and go
I
on with your career?
I just got associates at JC because I had 2 children, and I always had a job that was rewarding. I worked for the Grand Rapids Bar Association for a long time.
Oh, wow.
And so I was satisfied. But I do regret today that I didn't get to Michigan State. But you know what? I was pretty immature. And I have a feeling I would have maybe not made it the first year, because the one thing that I would say about growing up with being teacher's daughter in a small town was that I can't tell you how many times I heard, "You are a teacher's daughter, you have to set an example." And I hated hearing that, you know. And so I was pretty anxious to get on my own. And so.
Well, that's understandable, you know, and don't be too hard on yourself, because you did, you know, you were married, you had 2 children, you know, that's not an easy task in itself, but you still had a great job working for you said the Law Association?
The Grand Rapids Bar Association.
Grand Rapids Bar Association.
Yeah, that was an
huge.
education in itself.
So you were downtown Grand Rapids.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What street was that one? Was that on?
Well, first it was in the old, what was the old Kent building,
Okay.
on the top floor. So I had a bird's eye view of the city, and the political life of a city is downtown, and so there was always some interesting tidbit that happened every day, you know. So I really enjoyed that job.
That's pretty fabulous, though, to work downtown Grand Rapids, because, you know, and back in those days, you were, it wasn't until my landscape within the past 10, 15 years that the place that I work for that's downtown, that they said that I didn't have to wear nylons. And that's, yeah, it was, so it's, I look back at you and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you had to have nylons on every day.
Wore
you
suits.
Had to wear
and
suits.
no pantsuits.
No pantsuits. Oh, goodness. You know, so you were pretty. You wore the women's uniform of success.
I have some of those in my downstairs closet that'll never be worn again. Nobody wants them. Yeah, that's right. Didn't you work for Blue Cross?
I still do.
Oh,
I'm
do
down at the Steckady's building.
Oh, you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's exciting. It's pretty fabulous to be downtown. I really understand what you meant because you were on, like you said, the top floor of the old Kent building. How fabulous is that? So,
I had a parking spot right under the building. So it was nice.
That is great. And they paid for your parking for you then.
They had to
That's and those lunches downtown. I'm very envious. I wish I would have known you then. Then we could have, you know, really enjoyed a ladies' lunch together. That would have been fabulous.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
What time frame did you work at the law firm or at the bar association?
Let's see, from about in the mid 70s through the end of the 80s.
Okay.
And the association still exists, but not the way it did it then. There was a library. They had the law library, and all of that's on the internet now, on microfiche and so forth. So it's a different. I think they have a very small office somewhere. But,
How exciting. Do you have any questions for us, or is there something that you would like to make sure that we capture of your story?
Well, I guess I would just say that I think Lowell is a wonderful little town, and I got involved. I was involved with the museum at the very beginning, when Norm Borgerson was the head, and when we paid $1 to the city for the
Oh yes.
for the building,
For the
and
building.
yeah, the Crystal thing, and everything. So I get the newsletter, and it just seems like it's such a civic-minded community, and with an active group of, and the fact that the Showboat was rebuilt, I saw that today for the first time.
It's a beauty, isn't it?
Yeah, I was in the chorus, and my biggest joy in school was the band. I played the flute, and I was and
Was Orville Jessup?
oh yeah,
Any good stories on Orville? Because there was always good stories on
oh
him.
yeah.
He was special too.
He was. I still have the dish that he and his wife gave me for a wedding gift, and I, just think of them for that. Because I did love, and that's what I started out. Thought I was going to be a music major, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. But that's the only teaching I probably would have liked, is to be a band director in a high school. I love the bands. I've gone to band festivals sometimes just to see them, perform. And
What did you play?
what did I?
Yeah, what did you play in the band?
Flute.
Oh, flute.
Were you first chair flute?
Yep, I ended up being first chair.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I know that's big because my daughter Heather played flute and she was first chair, and it was a struggle for her to continue to keep that status. So big kudos to you for being first chair. Wow.
Well, we kind of, not to diminish that compliment, but I think that Orville when I was second chair, the gal that was the senior, Pat Schroeder, was at the time, was first chair, and I think he honored where you were. I mean,
Oh, okay.
too, in some ways. Not always, maybe, not, again, she was fine. She was as first chair, but I think, so then when she graduated, I just kind of moved up, and there were some other underlings, by my side.
That is kind. That is kind to give the senior, it's their last year in high school to do that for that step up like that. But no, that really is interesting that your first love was music.
Yeah.
So do you play music? Do you play your flute ever, or is there a certain, like you said, that you seek out to watch the bands, correct?
I love to watch bands.
Okay, so where do you go now to watch this?
But I haven't recently, but if I hear about a festival or a band that's performing, and I always listen when a band is getting, when they're performing at the state or some level, and it makes me so mad when the television cuts away from the college football, and when the band is going to be marching.
Yeah.
And they do that. They never show you the whole show, but not the big extravaganzas that the professional football. But I want to see the high school bands.
I do too.
Who was your favorite performer that ever came to Showboat? Did somebody a performer ever come that you thought, oh wow, I get to see this person? And did you get to meet them? No.
Well, Sylvia and I got to meet a lot of them because they were.
You remember Eddie Peabody, the magic player?
Yeah.
Oh, that brought a grin to your
yeah.
face. Because he was there like 4 years in a row or something.
Yeah.
Right?
I was
he
probably
a big,
in the chorus
Yeah,
then.
he was a big.
honestly, Louis Armstrong was on there one year.
And you saw him?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Wow, that's huge.
Dinah Shore was on
Oh,
there.
wow.
Good to see her.
And I'm trying to remember as we got, it just was always fun. And you know, the end men were at that time were so talented. Always had to hear the Battle Hymn of the Republic by Mr. Gumser and Bucky and. But I can't, you know, honestly, I can't remember any one performer that, and again, probably because of our age and the one, Nadine, I said the ballerina that we showed her sequence on, we thought it an honor, you know, and but if you know about sewing on sequins, it was, she didn't want to do it, you know, she found two willing people to do it, but we felt very honored to be asked to do it. So,
Yeah, it was the highlight of our summers growing up. Basically, it was like Christmas morning. I mean, it was, everybody loved it. You lived for that week.
oh yeah, yeah.
And, you know, they parade up Riverside Drive and get on the boat. And the whole show was.
Yeah,
was a
when we were
special
real
time.
little, we used to get on the boat and ride up. You know, I guess they had to stop that because of liability reasons, but. Yeah, I would agree that was definitely a highlight.
So what are you doing now? Obviously, are you a grandma and you spend time with?
I'm a great grandmother.
Oh, you're a great grandma.
But
How many you got?
My grandson married a young lady that had a 3-year-old little girl, and then they've had a little boy. So now we have a 3-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl. They were in California. He was recruited by Apple, and after packing up and several times for fires and being ready to evacuate, and then the COVID came, they decided they were coming back to Michigan. So I had sent all kinds of things to entice them. I sent them a cutting board last Christmas of the Michigan, you know, get back here. But they came back, but I had eight grandchildren, 4 boys and 4 girls, perfect. And I'm really close to my one granddaughter that.
So
She's a lot,
busy. Keeps you
yeah,
busy.
kids. She's a lot like me.
Oh,
She
is
doesn't know it, but she is.
How old is she?
28.
28,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I had a booth at the Lowell Antique Mall for quite a few years. And she's gotten into collecting things and selling online so that's one of the things we share an interest in.
I miss that antique mall, don't you?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was so great on a
I had
Sunday
a lot
afternoon.
of fun.
Sunday afternoon, I just loved it. I forget where your booth was at. Was it on the first
I
floor?
was on the first floor. I had a window at first, and then when I was scaling down a little bit up, I went upstairs. But
Okay.
I still have a few things that I have a way too big of a house that allowed me to have a lot of things. So I miss that.
So is all of the family still local, basically, or did? Yeah.
My family, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of my brothers now are gone, and my parents. I'm the only.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but your kids.
My kids are all
They're all
in the
local.
Grand Rapids
Yeah,
area,
yeah.
and the grandkids. Yeah. So that's good.
I thought I had heard that you sold your house and you're scaling down now. Is that what you are looking at doing, or?
Well, my husband was just diagnosed with dementia, and we're in a house that's way too big, but we live in a cul-de-sac. We have great neighbors, it's right in the heart of Cascade. We have everything we need within, a small distance. And so I don't really know what we're going to do. I'm trying to, right now I'm packing away all these big Rubbermaid tubs, packing away a lot of things that would be like for a sale or something,
Okay.
and trying to scale down that way and then make a decision. I don't want to go to a senior living, but so
It's
we
not
don't
for
know.
everybody, so don't worry about that. My husband's not that, he wouldn't. I personally would have no problem going to senior living. Just give me my spot, I would be fine. But my husband, I understand what you're saying. My husband's not ready to. Even he said even when he's ready to, he's not going to ever go. So he understands.
Even
that.
when he needs to,
Right,
he won't.
right.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't even consider coming back to Snyder Manor or anything like that, scaling down to a Snyder Manor, and you could walk.
I don't even. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
Okay.
Does that have to be for Lowell residents?
You were a Lowell resident, so you do qualify. So our door is always open to you. We'd love you back.
Yeah.
We'd love you to come back home.
I know a lot of people who have gone there, and my mother's friends, and then, but I just never thought about it. And,
Where did your parents go after Lowell?
they moved into an apartment in Grand Rapids for a short time, and then my brother Jim, when he graduated from the U of M, the first job he accepted was in the San Francisco area.
Oh, wow.
And so they decided to move out there.
Really?
And then my brother Bob, who graduated from Western, also then followed out there.
Interesting.
They all left me.
Coincidence. I
Yeah.
lived out in San Francisco for 22 years. I just returned in June of 2020.
Do you know where Novato is?
Oh, yes.
That's where they moved. And my brother, there was Indian Valley Junior College,
Okay.
and he got in on the ground floor of that and built his department and stayed. And Novato was kind of a little town like Lowell.
Indeed,
Because
yeah.
there were a lot of transplants. When my dad died, people were bringing, casseroles and just like, a small town. And
Yeah. Yeah, probably up even till probably, I don't know, 30 years ago, it was very small town. But within the last 30 years, it exploded.
Is it?
And the only town that's in that area that's probably close to Lowell, the atmosphere would probably be Petaluma,
Okay.
which is just north of that.
Yeah, I know that. I like Petaluma. So I spent a lot of time in that area, and there's no. The only person that's there now is a former sister-in-law, and Hamilton Air Force Base was all made into, it's like a city on its own now, in condos, and she lives in a condo there.
Okay.
Do you fly out there to see her?
No, we keep in touch.
You call her. What have you?
Emails and talk. And
When was the last time you were out there?
Well, it was probably for one of my brother's memorial service.
Okay.
He taught, and we had two. He had moved to Oregon. He retired in Oregon, and the people. In fact, this Linda wanted to have a memorial service, and a lot of his former students came, and we had that in. It was some place by San Rafael, way up in the hills, and beautiful spot. And that was the last time I was there. And I considered moving there, but I'm glad I didn't, because there's really. The cost of living and.
Oh, yes. But if you
and nobody-
purchased a house there 40 years ago,
Yeah.
It would be worth a lot of money now, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, the real estate but I, I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
But well, I was thinking that I told you that there was a secret about the house.
Okay. Yes.
Well, having two twin brothers that, when they were bored, who do they, try to play tricks on and whatever. My dad knew that. So he built me a secret place to hide my diary.
Aww.
And I wonder if anybody ever found that.
Well, I can tell you, I have been through a lot of corners of that house, but it would be really cool if you could tell me where that is. I should go look for it.
Well, the back bedroom, if I remember right, way at the back is a little closet. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, were there some shelves in the closet?
Yes, indeed.
On the very bottom shelf, there was a floorboard that lifts up, and underneath there's a little box. And my husband said to me when I was telling him about it, he says, "What if your diary is still there?" I don't know whatever happened to my diary.
Wow. Well, I know that there's actually the bottom portion is where it's just like a board, and I have pulled that out, and it's like you see a pipe there or something.
Oh.
But I haven't pulled up. I could pull up the car, so it's below the floorboard.
If I remember that correctly, that it lifted up, and there was just a little hollow in there, and that was
so you
where.
could hide your diary from those two thieving brothers.
Well, and then Jim Hall was like a
Hall.
third brother because he lived at our house a lot because
Okay.
his parents lived out in the country, so he'd come over, and so the three of them teased me for years. They'd throw out names and things. Well, Jim Hall, as an adult, said, "We never found your diary." But they, I was so gullible. I reacted every time, and they loved it, just to make me think they'd read my diary.
We're gonna have to look at that. And getting back to the house, I didn't want to cut you off, but I didn't want you to leave without. We have pictures of the house that you lived in. And you said that house was the last house at the end of on that street. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing going towards the cemetery. There
was beyond the cemetery where, who lived there? She had the worm farm.
I've heard about
Gladys.
this. Yeah, I've heard about this, and I'm not.
And then the scout cabin was way up at the end there, and there was also a house on the other side of the street, on the far side of the cemetery. They had horses, and they used to let my friend and I ride bareback in their corral there.
That was Hausman's.
Who?
Hausman's? Was that the Hausman's?
I can't remember. I never knew the people very well, but except they let Rosemary and I ride their horse in the corral there. But we were the last house before Jefferson came down.
Came down that hill.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, at the beginning. Yeah.
And then your dad, he sold all of that.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I mean, if he sold it to all at once, or if he sold them off one by one, or what.
But there's 5 houses there now. To where when that house was built, there was nothing there but like woods and trees or what have you, or was it a field?
I think it was just a field.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I don't know who lived in our house or that house we bought. I mean, I don't even know those details at all.
Yeah, and one reason I don't think we've mentioned on camera yet why the story about the house is special to me is because I grew up in that house. I moved in to the house in 1976 when I was 5 years old, and my mom is still there now. So we've been there for nearly 46 years. Yeah. So what's interesting is that even though we've been there longer than your family had ever been there, it's still known as the White House to anybody
It is.
that's, has been around Lowell.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way when I got married to Thomas Savage and we lived in the north end of Grand Rapids, that street, all of the houses there are known of the original owner. And that's the way, and everybody that, it's a very desired street, Cheshire Drive on the north end.
Oh, yeah.
And they're...
My great aunt and uncle used to live up there. And she was from Lowell. Margene Brillhart. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just met her daughter,
Mary. Yeah.
who was a college roommate of someone I know, and I recognize, and we had a discussion about your grandmother Rosie.
Oh, of course. Notorious Rosie. And that's right, that's another story we talked about on the phone, is that you babysat my dad and my Uncle Rick.
Yes, yep, I did. And I was trying to remember, I think that was in a house on Monroe.
Yep. 619.
That I just drove by there. I think
Yep.
that's where they lived then. I was just over on Washington, and I probably walked over there to babysit.
Just a hop, skip, and a jump. Yeah. Well, and so so Mac and Rosie, they moved over to Lafayette Street, several houses down here. We're on Lafayette Street right now. And then my Uncle Rick and his wife Pat moved into the Monroe Street house.
Okay.
And they lived there for several years. And
Are you an only child?
No, I have a sister. She lives down in New Orleans.
Oh.
Yeah, she moved down there in 2002.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, so we both flew the coop, but I came back to the coop, I guess.
Did you live right in San Francisco? Or?
Oh yeah. Alamo Square.
Okay.
Remember that? Yeah, historic Alamo Square. Yeah.
The most photographed.
Yep. It was basically those houses were across the park for me. I was on the northwest side of Alamo Square Park in a big brick apartment building, and they were across the park from me.
Fun.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's a fun city.
We're glad to have them back home.
Oh,
We
I'm
are.
sure. And you're gotten involved in the community, and
Yeah, it's been great returning. It's in a way I'm kind of getting reintroduced to the community because there are people I'm connecting with that I never connected with growing up here. And it's like Tina babysat me a few times, but we just never,
No.
kept in touch.
It was a reconnection as an adult, and then once Craig came into the community, and we talked about his house, because I said, that house is so strange. It looks so crisp and cool looking. And that's when he said, "Oh, you mean the old White House?" And I said, "Really?" And that's the reason you're here today, because Craig is the one that said, "We've got to interview you." Lois."
Well, and I didn't know even where you were in this world until Artist Barber, about 3 weeks ago, a month ago or
I
so,
just called her recently.
mentioned that you had called her. And I'm like, Lois? Somebody and she's like, yeah. And I'm like, I need her number. I want to call her. I want us to interview her.
Yes. Yeah. That's the reason why we needed to reach out to you, because we wanted to make sure that we captured your memories of growing up there. And of course, you name dropped Mr. Jim Hall, and he was a big leader in our community and a huge loss still to this day for all of us.
He was like a brother to another brother to me.
He was my dad's best friend, and it was just like losing your dad again, huge force. And so that's the reason why, getting back to you, I kept on thinking, well, who is Lois? And we needed to hear more about you and you growing up here. and the huge work that your dad did in this community for being, as my mom would say, and I agree, your father was pretty brave teaching driver's ed to these young people here in town.
Taking his life in his hands. Yeah.
Because that wouldn't be a job that I would be able to do. And your father for doing that, and before the, and he ran it until the state took it over, that's huge. And that,
Without
and we
pay.
Without
No,
pay.
yeah.
And
That was his gift to us.
In those days, though, teachers were expected to work the sports events, drive buses out for out-of-town sports events, and do all those things.
All for free. That was part of
that
it.
was
That was part of
along
the
with
part of
their
the deal. Wow.
yeah, sell tickets at the games and whatever extra there was.
And
It's just what was then, so they did it.
We appreciate all that extra work and that help that both your parents did, and then you babysitting, of course, those Fonger boys, and
yeah, how did you
not
survive
bring
that?
I guess it just. You've seen pictures of your grandmother in her early?
Oh yes.
I mean, she was a beauty.
Yep.
Oh,
She
yeah.
was- yeah.
When she passed, she was still a beauty.
Yeah.
She definitely was.
Yeah, I remember she and Matt were one of those couples that came up to our house every now and then, and my dad giving them a little pep talk.
There you go.
Funny.
Sometimes we all need those. But go ahead.
Oh, we're talking about the house. One thing that I wanted to mention is, I discovered the speaker system that he had set up in the house.
That was probably my brother Jim did that.
Oh, really?
Jim was the electric.
Yeah, it's still almost intact. I could wire it all back up and make it work. I did it when I was in elementary school, crawling around in the crawl spaces. I found all these wires, and I found where they went to the bookcase in the living room, and I hooked everything up, and I had sound blaring throughout the whole house in the basement.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell his daughter that because I know without a doubt that Jim did that. He was
That was his
electric.
deal.
He graduated from the U of M School of Engineering.
Okay, so that's what inspired that whole project.
He used to go down to Crouch's radio shop. Other kids would be doing what, but he's down in the radio shop, in the back room, learning something.
Wow.
That's huge. And that radio shop was right there on Main Street, wasn't
Yep, right on the corner. In fact, my step-grandfather, George Scheck, owned that after he bought it from Crouch, I believe, and he owned it from, I don't know, the 1960s to the early 1980s.
Well, I'll tell you what. Thank you for coming into Lowell. It's a pretty busy day. It's Christmas through Lowell today, so that's a weekend that you came in for, and we appreciate that you came in for this interview. And what a delight for you to share your memories of growing up here in Lowell, and of course name dropping a few of you that I teased you. And we're definitely going to go look for that, see if there's a diary left in there.
Indeed.
Just promise me one thing: if there is, please don't read it.
I will return it to you.
Or if you do, remember that it was a young, naive
Oh, yes.
girl that wrote
Of
it.
course. We won't publish it. We'll send it to you.
Yeah. We won't make a copy for the Lowell Museum.
A ledger.
Thank you very much, and you have a great rest of your day.
You're welcome.
The Lowell Area Historical Museum is proud to sponsor community oral history interviews. The Lowell Area Historical Museum educates, enriches, and inspires our community and visitors through the preservation and presentation of Lowell area history. For reservations and more information, contact the Lowell Area Historical Museum at 616-897-7688.